Good morning and welcome to the ABC's special coverage of Anzac Day commemorations in the Northern Territory. I'm Olivana Lathouris. The Anzac Day March is about to begin in the Darwin CBD. We're broadcasting from Larrakia country across ABC TV, radio and our Facebook page. And joining us in the studio this morning are two very special guests, Lieutenant Commander Mark Bunnett and Captain Nancy Middis. Thank you both so much for joining us this morning and lending us your time and expertise. Before the march gets underway, I'd love to just spend a little bit of time talking a bit about both of your roles within our Defence Force and our military. Mark, we might begin with you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ollie. And it's lovely to be here this morning for the Anzac Day March in Darwin. And I'm a training systems officer, but I had been out of defence for some time and have come back in on reserve days. I'm working as the First Lieutenant at HMAS Coonawarra. Our primary task is to support the patrol boats there, but I'm working mainly in the personnel area.
Excellent, excellent. And Nancy, yourself, you're in the Army.
Yes, I am. So I'm currently posted to the 1st Combat Signal Regiment at Robertson Barracks. I'm the operations officer for the 104 Signal Squadron. So that sees me looking after the day-to-day activities of the squadron and our activities of going out field and organising our squadrons as they support the brigade commander in the field, and then we support each of the battle groups as they move around in communication. So it's a really interesting and exciting role to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. They both sound absolutely fascinating, and we'll, I'm sure, talk more about both of those roles as we go through. But it seems the march is getting underway very shortly, so we'll take a look at that. Now the crowds have gathered right through Nucky Street, as we can see. Looks like a beautiful day in Darwin, as per usual. The march being led, as always, by the Northern Territory Police Force, clearing the way, making sure they have a nice clear path through the city. You know, we saw a really fantastic turnout this morning at the dawn service, and we can see plenty of people lining the streets there today. I suppose for you both, given you know, you both have a long history you know, in defence and still are currently serving members, I suppose, what does it mean to you to see all of those people turning out and supporting our troops?
It's just wonderful to see the support that's given to commemorate such an important day for the military across the board. And I think it's always surprising to see how many people turn up and the age range of people that come along to support both the veterans and also the serving members today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a beautiful show of support from the community. It really shows how united the country comes together on this special day, just to recognise the sacrifices made by those who have served their country and not returned, and those who continue to live with those sacrifices, who've lost loved ones or live with the effects of war and service. So yeah, it's really lovely to see the community come out and support that.
Absolutely. You can see quite a few young people waving their flags there today, and coming down just in that shot there is the Whaler horse. I believe this horse is now, it's the 4th year this horse has been a part of the march, or led the march, so becoming quite a nice tradition, I suppose, for Darwin. And of course there is the Gallipoli torch coming down now. Yeah, there we go. Some of the younger people in the crowd clapping and waving their flags. It is really nice to see the younger generation, I suppose, as we move further and further away. And you know, 110 years is obviously a big sort of landmark, and it's amazing to see that still after all this time, such an incredible amount of support from the community, and also to see, I suppose, the way that you know, we remember has changed as well. You know, obviously times are changing, and you know, it's still just such a strong part of our community, particularly in Darwin, of course. As you would both know, it's such a big military and defence town.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeanette Wilson, who was leading the Whaler horse, so this is her 21st year of leading the Anzac Day Parade.
I'm so sorry, Nancy. I believe we've got jets going over any time now. We've got the F-35, which is flown over the Darwin Harbour over the march down Nucky Street. There it comes, travelling at, I believe, about 550 kilometres an hour, which is incredible speeds there. There we go, you can hear the roar as it goes over the crowd, a few woos. I know that whenever we have pitch black, those jets make an absolute racket as they go over. I'm so sorry to interrupt you there, Nancy.
No problem.
We love to get the Jets in. They're a crowd favourite.
Absolutely, absolutely. Everyone loves to see the Jets.
Yeah, absolutely.
We heard the roar outside the studio.
You normally hear them before you see them. Those Jets, they're very impressive. I suppose being in the military, do you guys ever get sick of the excitement that comes with the impressive aircraft? Does it ever get old?
I don't think so. I think that it's just part of the fun of being in the military, and it's part of the tradition, I suppose. And I guess it's a bit like the Anzac Day dawn service and the ceremonies that we have that are very similar year to year, but likewise very moving every year. And I don't know how many times I stand at the dawn service with the sun coming up and just think it's amazing to be part of this organisation that is so supportive of one another, and that just makes it all the worthwhile to be there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think we can hear the Darwin City Brass Band, I believe, is that very impressive sound coming from the march now. Obviously, the dais also coming through, I believe. And as you can see there, we've got those individuals, Hugh Heggie in the middle. And I believe as they walk past, everyone does a salute, and that is a sign of respect as they go past.
Absolutely, yes. You can see the 1st Brigade Commander there on the dais, so Brigadier Douglas Pashley, CSC. So he is showing that respect to the troops as they march past, and they'll respond in like it as a formed body. So you'll see that as each of the different groups come past. It'll be great.
Excellent. And very distinct in those crisp white uniforms is the Navy. We were talking this morning as you came in with your coffee how impressive it is they managed to keep themselves looking so neat and tidy in those white uniforms.
It's a bit of an effort. That was HMAS Coonawarra leading the way there with Captain Shervington, the commanding officer of Coonawarra, and behind them we will have had HMAS Ballarat, who are in town for Anzac Day, about 130 personnel. And then we would have had the patrol boats behind them.
Phenomenal. And I understand HMAS Coonawarra is a very large contingent. That's something like 600 people involved.
Yeah, so there's about 600 Navy personnel posted to the Darwin area. Most of them are managed by Coonawarra as their admin area. We can see Ballarat just there coming in. They're just here for the weekend. And there's about 130 of them, as I said, and then we have individual patrol boats coming up behind them as well.
Excellent, excellent. Always such a distinct look. It must be nice to have, Ballarat coming to visit. Is that something that happens often, where you get?
Well, we've got a new wharf at Coonawarra, the Koori Wharf, which has enabled us to have major fleet units visit Darwin, such as HMAS Adelaide, we've got Ballarat, we had a large aircraft carrier from Italy last year.
I do recall, that was very impressive, everyone was very excited.
So it's really nice to have that capability and to allow us to, have more involvement from Navy within things like Anzac Day.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I understand the Navy usually leads for a specific reason, is that right?
We are known as the Senior Service, which is a throwback
I can see Nancy
from the Royal Navy.
Nodding there.
So it has become a tradition that the Navy leads the way in the parade.
Yeah. And now we've got that sea of green coming through, that is the Army.
Yeah, beautiful. So that is the 1st Combat Signal Regiment who are actually leading the way this year. So they've been given that opportunity to recognise Certecido, which is 100 years since the forming of the Corps of Signals in the Australian Army, which is really fantastic to see that recognised and then put to the front. And then this year is also really special for the 1st Combat Signal Regiment, because 104 Signal Squadron, which I'm a part of, also have their 60th birthday anniversary as well. So they were raised back in 1965 for Vietnam, and they actually had the longest serving squadron as 104 in Vietnam of 5 years and 8 months.
So impressive, yeah, such an impressive legacy.
Yeah.
And I suppose it'd be great to know a little bit more about what the signals actually do, what their role is. I know that it's probably, communications is such an essential essential part of defence. Are you able to talk a little bit about their role?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's changed vastly, obviously, since Anzac with Morse code and all the mirrors and flags and other signals things. So now we've moved to satellite communications, deployed networks, radio communications as well. So using HF, EHF, and the likes, and so it's really interesting and very technical, and it just provides that link for each of the brigade commander to speak with and communicate with his battle groups in the field. So really important role and really technical, but really interesting as well.
Phenomenal, phenomenal. And if that sound is anything to go by, I would believe it's the 1st Combat Signal Regiment, and behind them the band of the 1st Brigade potentially, which is probably that very impressive noise. I believe that they're a busy group, the band. I'm not sure if you...
Absolutely. So they have a very busy schedule. Their music director is Captain Nat Dajski, and their drum major is Warrant Officer David Shuttleworth. And they support so many events in the community, not just Army, Navy and Air Force. They support community events as well. So they have a very busy schedule.
And we've been very fortunate to actually have a Navy band start up here in Darwin as well. So that happened last year. They are a small group of 5, led by a chief, and they are also becoming increasingly busy in the top end as well. So it's lovely to have both bands able to support the ADF in the top end.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. I can't imagine being so skilled that you are able to do all of this as well as play an instrument, march at the same time. It's all very impressive, I must admit. And coming through now, still part of the Army contingent by...
Yep, so I think that's now 812 Regiment. So they are our artillery who are based up here. Something that's super interesting is like the first fixed defences in Darwin were in fact 6-inch guns that were mounted at East Point. So you can actually see the replicas of the 9.2 inches that replaced them. So that's at the War Memorial Precinct over at East Point. So that's a great opportunity for people to go and experience some further history behind military service in Darwin.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, Darwin is in so many ways. I think as we were about to discuss before I rudely interrupted you with the jets, was just the significance of these sorts of events, particularly in our community. You know, our city has, you know, this really rich history, and there is really the whole city is really a memorial. There's, you know, remnants of past wars and conflicts scattered right across our city. And as you say, it's not just today, but, you know, at any time people are able to go and visit those and spend some time learning and remembering and, yeah, just paying tribute to what an important part Darwin played in some of the most significant conflicts in Australian history, but in the world, really.
And I think, you know, we see that every year when we commemorate the bombing of Darwin, particularly, but also I think we saw that last year with the 50th anniversary of Cyclone Tracy, and just remembering the impact that had on this town and the response that Navy and Army and Air Force all had for the people of Darwin in supporting them after that tragedy.
Yeah, 100%. That's, you know, such a salient point. I think, of course, our Defence Force just plays so many roles in our community. They're such an integral part of not just the community here, but nationally and internationally. And yeah, certainly the Cyclone Tracy was another just huge event that shaped the history of Darwin and the top end, and certainly it was really interesting to see what role our servicemen and women played in helping our city get back on its feet and get to where it is today. And another group coming through
so
now.
this is 5-7 RER. So they were actually 2 separate infantry battalions who relinked at the end of last year. So the 7th Battalion moved up from Adelaide as part of the Defence Strategic Review, which has seen them come together, and they're now called 5-7 RER. So they have a long history as well of service across many conflicts, especially Vietnam, Iraq, East Timor, Afghanistan, and they have a number of regimental battle honours as well that they've been awarded.
Fantastic, and as we can see here come the Tiger helicopters coming over now, flying very low, I believe at about 30 metres or so, so they'd be making a huge roar, as we can hear there as they go down Nucky Street over the Darwin Harbour, from the Darwin Harbour. I'm sure all eyes are up in the sky. We can probably hear them from the newsroom as they roar over the top of us now. And they will be, this is probably the last Anzac Day that we'll be seeing them en masse in Darwin.
The Tigers, yeah, definitely. Possibly. So they're currently relocating to Townsville, so half of their squadron has already moved, and the other half will follow shortly once the Black Hawks come into service. So it'll be really interesting to see how things progress there.
Do you think Darwin will miss them?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. But they'll end up with some sort of lift, I imagine, in Darwin. So there'll be some sort of kilo that will come back into service in this area once it's confirmed.
Right. And I believe the next group that will be coming through is the RAAF, which of course play such a significant role in our big military exercises. I think most people would know them through exercise Pitch Black, which keeps everyone's eyes on the sky once every couple of years. And you know, you both have been involved in a number of significant military exercises in Darwin. Amy, I know that, Nancy, sorry, I know that, you know, as a part of one that's coming up very soon in a couple of months' time.
Yeah, we have Exercise Talisman Sabre, which comes up, which is a joint operation exercise. So it's basically some joint activities that will occur in the north and other locations across Australia. So you will see most of the Australian contingency, being RAF, Navy and Army, join in different ways.
And I think they're going to have a larger footprint than they normally do in the north this year.
Yeah, so it'll be really interesting to see how things play out this year. It should see some littoral rehearsals occurring, so it will be really interesting to see.
Will that mean that, you know, people might see a bit of that happening, or is it going to be in areas where we're, you know, the general public are unlikely to notice it? Obviously, Pitch Black really sucks up a lot of attention in Darwin, but I don't know if that's the same.
Yeah, so sometimes you will have events occur within the communities. Sometimes out like Dundee Beach will have beach landings, but they'll occur usually at times that the public aren't necessarily in the area, or they'll give full warning to the public so that they're in the area, they know what's happening.
I think they'll notice a number of ships from overseas in the harbour, so there'll be an increased presence of Navy ships, which will be a little bit different as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always makes life interesting for the people on the water.
Certainly, I know we, especially in Darwin, we do pay a fair bit of attention to what's happening in our harbour. So always very exciting. And
yes, now we have the Marine Rotational
very recognisable. The Marines,
yeah,
here they come.
Absolutely. So the US Marine Rotational Force Darwin, they started their annual 6-month rotation with Colonel Jason C. Armis as their commanding officer and Sergeant Major Michael T. Escobar as their Sergeant Major of the MRF-D, as we like to call them. So the Marines will engage in a variety of training activities in the Northern Territory, throughout Australia and the greater Indo-Pacific region whilst they're here. And it's just to be postured and support operations alongside the ADF and other regional allies and partners. So it's great to have them participate.
Absolutely, and they spread themselves across Darwin, across a number of bases. We do have a MRF-D contingent at HQ Norcom at Kinwara, the Larrakia Defence Precinct as it's called. They're out at Robertson. So yeah, they do spread themselves across, and then of course they're out on exercise outbush at times.
Yeah, and we do some interoperability with them as well with the 1st Combat Signal Regiment. So we actually have a unit node who attach to them and go out and do interoperability. So it's great to be able to work with our partners so closely and ensure that all of our technical communications work across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that the Marines are, you know, such another really sort of defining feature, I suppose, of the military and defence landscape here in the Northern Territory, and of course, you know, as things overseas, obviously, you know, ebb and flow, and you know, international relations, which is something that we've been seeing play out, of course, very prominently over the last couple of months. It's you know, so crucial that we have those relationships with the United States, and the Marines are, of course, a very strong sign of that really strong relationship between Australia and the US.
Yes.
Yeah. And here come some of the younger people. They look nice and tall from that angle, but I think they're a little shorter than the rest. Our cadets coming through now. I know we spoke a little earlier this morning off camera about how you both got involved with the military and defence force, but you know, I suppose, you know, the cadets is that still really a strong pathway?
Absolutely, and it's an important pathway, you know, across all three services, the cadet units that run. But I think what's really interesting for young people these days is that the number of pathways that are offered into the military, with cadets being one way, the gap year that we have, which offers them a year working with Navy, Air Force or Army for a year paid around the country, so which allows them to have an experience with military before actually making the decision to join up full time. And cadets are definitely part of that process, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I've seen so many people come through the Royal Military College who actually have a history and participated in cadets, and they were great performers at the college. So it definitely sets people up well if it is future that they might be interested in going into defence, is linking in early with cadets so that you have that pre-exposure to defence and what's expected, and gives you opportunities to build leadership, self-reliance and initiative, which is really great for our youth.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Army Marching Band coming through now. As I said before, it's always very impressive to see people playing instruments in perfect timing, marching in perfect timing. Something that I could absolutely never dream of doing, that level of multitasking. But yeah, just back on the cadets very briefly, I suppose, you know, how important is it that, you know, we talked a little bit about the importance and how nice it is to see so many young people being a part of these sorts of days and these sorts of commemorations. It must be also really nice to see cadets marching in these sorts of events as well, just showing the support from younger people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really great to see. I think as well, we have a number of people from our unit who went out this week in different catapult parties to participate in Anzac Day parades within schools, within the community. And it's just this really great link between defence and the local community, to be able to have those relationships, to be able to expose kids to defence so that they can see it as a viable option. Like it's a fantastic career. It's a great organisation to be a part of.
And a lot of schools now employ defence mentors whose job is basically to look after or mentor the defence students in those schools. And again, they often become involved in Anzac Day ceremonies, involving their parents in the school events, which is just another lovely way of, I guess, showing the rest of the school community military involvement and just giving them a taste of what they could expect if they decided to go down that path themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can see that the march is slowly wrapping up now, which gives us a little bit of leeway to have a bit more of a chat, and I can pick both of your brains a little bit more about a few things. You know, I don't believe either of you went through cadets. So Mark, how did you end up getting involved in the Navy?
Look, it's an interesting question. I actually did a movie for the Navy back in 1994. Had no military experience and ended up playing an XO of a patrol boat. It was from that I was a little bit jaded with teaching in around 2000 and just decided I was looking for a new career and walked into recruitment and basically signed up on the spot, and within 6 months found myself down at Creswell doing officer training. So it was a totally different experience and unexpected experience as well.
But you've never looked back, clearly.
No, it was great, you know, and I was in for 14 years full time and then did get out for a little while, but I've been back in on continuous full-time service now for 2 years, and I'm really enjoying it.
Phenomenal, so, yeah. Phenomenal. And Nancy, yourself, you have another really interesting story and pathway.
Yeah, mine is a little bit different. So I've definitely come to defence a bit more mature aged. So I wanted to join straight out of high school. My dad is ex-RAF and I was 17, and so he wouldn't give me permission to join. So I didn't. I went and worked in real estate, and then met my husband, who was in the army, and then he medically discharged from some injuries. We had a family, so we had 2 girls, and when they were about 8 and 10, I decided that defence was actually still something I really wanted to do. So my husband put in his paperwork, I put in mine, and we joined, found both of ourselves at RMC at the same time. I ended up in the class ahead of him, and it's been a journey since, but I'm so glad that we've done it. It's been really great.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, have either of your girls expressed much of an interest in wanting to follow in your footsteps?
So they're both very supportive of RAF and Navy. They see the challenges that Army have, and they enjoy comfort. So they see the things that we do outfield, and it doesn't quite appeal to them, but it's something that I love. I love accepting the challenge and being able to get out there and work with the soldiers, so it's great.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned there that obviously your dad, was a part of the military. It'd be great to talk a little bit about, because you both have really interesting sort of family involvement and history, with the Defence Force. Tell us more about your dad's role.
Yeah, so my dad served in the Royal Australian Air Force, and he was in during Vietnam. So he actually deployed to Vietnam and served at Nui Dat, returned and then discharged later once he and my mum had their first child. So he wasn't in when I grew up, but we have a really strong connection to Defence and have always attended Anzac Day and commemorated it. It's been a really special place in our lives and really strong now.
Absolutely. Mark, we have just a little bit of time left, and tell us briefly about your family history.
So my father was in the Army Reserve when I was growing up, but I really didn't get an interest in military from that. But my stepfather, who came into my life in 1991, he was a POW on Ambon. So he was part of Gulf Force and was in Darwin preparing for whatever was coming next, having joined a couple of years earlier from Melbourne. And they were sent over to Ambon in late 1941, and by January 1942, they were prisoners of war under the Japanese. And he actually watched the planes overhead take off to bomb Darwin in February 1942.
Wow.
So he lasted there 3.5 years, but was rescued at the end of the war by Navy, by the corvettes. He has a very he did have a very fond memory of that. And he didn't march in Anzac Day for a long time. And when I met him, he still wasn't marching. But then I think he realised he had a legacy to pass on regarding what happened to him on Ambon. A lot of people didn't know about Ambon. They knew about Changi, but they didn't know about Ambon. And he made it his life mission to make sure that story got out. So he now has artefacts in the Australian War Memorial. They did a school package of him in Victoria. He spoke at schools. And lived until 2022 after he turned 101.
Phenomenal.
So so that had a very big impact on me, and definitely is a very big part of my life on Anzac Day.
Thank you so much for both sharing that. We're fairly pretty much out of time, so this brings our Anzac Day broadcast to an end. Thank you for joining us on the ABC for the Street Parade and our other commemorations. And of course, such a big thank you to our guests, Lieutenant Commander Mark Bunnett and Captain Nancy Middis, for coming in today. Your knowledge and insights have just been so appreciated. The Dawn Service and Anzac Day March will be available to watch again in full on ABC iView a little later today. I'm Olivana Lathuris. Thank you again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.